For 29 years, no one had ever escaped from Alcatraz and lived to prove it. The freezing currents, the sheer cliffs, and a mile of black water had stopped every man who tried. Then, on the night of June the 11th, 1962, 3 men climbed out of their cells through holes they had dug with spoons, slipped past the guards, and vanished into the bay on a raft made of raincoats. By morning, they were gone. And to this day, no one knows if they drowned in the dark or made it to shore and got away with the impossible. Welcome to Curio Hour, where we uncover the strange, the unsolved, and the unforgettable. Today's story: the Alcatraz escape. In the middle of San Francisco Bay sits a small, rocky island. Cold, wind-battered, and surrounded by some of the most treacherous water in America. For decades, it held the most dangerous criminals in the United States. The men no other prison could control. This was Alcatraz. They called it the Rock, and it was built to be inescapable. A mile of frigid, churning water separated it from the mainland. The currents were brutal. The temperature cold enough to kill a man in minutes. Guard towers, searchlights, barbed wire, and the bay itself stood between any prisoner and freedom. In its 29 years as a federal prison, dozens of men had tried to escape. Every one of them failed. Most were caught. Some were shot. A few simply disappeared into the water. No one had ever made it off that island and proven they survived. Until 3 men decided to attempt something no one had dared. The first was Frank Morris. Orphaned as a boy, he had spent his life in and out of institutions. He was also brilliant, with an intelligence in the top 2% of the population. Morris was the planner, the mind behind what was about to unfold. The other 2 were brothers, John and Clarence Anglin. 2 of 13 children raised between Georgia and Florida. The Anglins were bank robbers, and crucially they were powerful, fearless swimmers, known since childhood for swimming in icy water that kept everyone else on the shore. A 4th man, Alan West, was part of the plan too. He had helped dream it up, but fate had something else in store for him. The men's cells sat side by side in a block called B. And it was there, staring at a prison wall, that Frank Morris noticed a weakness. At the back of each cell was a small ventilation grill, no bigger than a dinner plate. And behind the cells ran an unguarded utility corridor, packed with pipes. If a man could widen that vent and squeeze through, he could reach that corridor unseen. And from there, he could climb all the way to the roof. It was a desperate idea. The concrete was thick. They had no tools, and a single guard on a single count could end it all. But Morris and the Anglins were patient, and they were about to do the impossible, one tiny scrape at a time. They began to dig. Not with machines, but with whatever they could steal or improvise. Spoons from the mess hall, discarded saw blades found on the prison grounds, and a crude drill built from the stolen motor of a vacuum cleaner. Night after night, during the prison's music hour, they scraped at the concrete around the vents. Morris played his accordion to help bury the sound. It was agonizingly slow. But over months, the holes widened. To hide their work, they covered the openings with fake grills made of painted cardboard. One by one, they broke through into the corridor behind their cells. And there, on the unguarded top of the cell block, they built a secret workshop. Hidden just above the guards' heads, they began to construct the things they would need to cross the bay. But there was one problem they could not dig their way past: the nightly head count. Every night, the guards walked the block, checking that each man lay in his bed. If even one cell was found empty, the alarm would sound at once. So the men built something chilling and ingenious. fake heads. Using soap, toothpaste, toilet paper, and concrete dust, they molded lifelike dummy heads and painted them with flesh tones stolen from the maintenance shop. And in a final, eerie touch, they gathered real human hair from the floor of the prison barber shop and glued it into place. Tucked beneath the blankets, the dummies could pass for sleeping men in the dim light, buying the escapees the one thing they needed most: time. Now they needed a way to survive the water. And the answer came from an unlikely place: a magazine. In an issue of Popular Mechanics, Morris found instructions for building a life preserver. And the men got to work. They collected over 50 raincoats. And stitch by careful stitch, they transformed them into something that might just keep them alive. They sewed together a raft 6 feet by 14, sealing the seams with the heat of nearby steam pipes. They built life vests and paddles of plywood. To inflate the raft, they modified a stolen concertina, a small accordion, into a makeshift set of bellows. After 6 months of secret, painstaking work, everything was ready. They were about to gamble their lives on a homemade raft in a mile of killer water. On the night of June the 11th, 1962, after lights out, they made their move. They placed the dummy heads in their beds. Then one by one, they slipped through the holes behind their cells and into the dark corridor. But there was a problem. Alan West. The cement around his vent had hardened, narrowing his hole. He clawed at it in the dark, but he could not get through in time. As his 3 companions disappeared up the shaft, West was left behind. The 4th man would not be going. Morris and the Anglins climbed the ventilation shaft to the prison roof. A guard heard a crash in the dark, but assumed it was nothing and never investigated. They crossed the roof, slid 50 feet down a kitchen vent pipe, and scaled 2 12-foot barbed wire fences. Then they reached the shoreline in a blind spot between the searchlights and the gun towers. They inflated their raft, climbed aboard, and pushed off into the blackness. They were aiming for Angel Island, 2 miles across the bay. And then the men of Alcatraz vanished into the night. For hours, nobody knew a thing. The dummy heads lay still in their beds, fooling guard after guard, count after count. It was not until 7 the next morning, when an officer reached through the bars, that a fake head rolled to the floor. And the truth exploded across the prison. The alarm finally sounded. But by then, the 3 men had a 9-hour head start. What followed was one of the largest manhunts in American history. Boats, helicopters, and search teams swept the bay. They found pieces. A paddle floating near Angel Island. A life vest washed up beyond the Golden Gate Bridge. A waterproof bag of the Anglins' photographs and addresses. But they never found the men. No bodies. No raft. No trace at all. To the FBI, the evidence pointed to one grim conclusion. The men had drowned in the freezing bay, swallowed by the currents. After 17 years, the Bureau closed the case. But not everyone agreed. The U.S. Marshals refused to close it and keep it open to this day. Because over the years, the strangest clues have surfaced. Family members claim to receive postcards and Christmas cards written in the brothers' handwriting for years after the escape. In 1975, a family friend claimed to photograph John and Clarence Anglin, alive and well, in Brazil. Experts said the men in the picture were, more than likely, the brothers. And in 2013, a letter reached the police from a man claiming to be John Anglin. It said he was still alive, that Morris had died in 2008 and Clarence in 2011. Its authenticity could never be confirmed. So what really happened out on the black water that night? Did the freezing bay claim them, as the FBI believes? Or did three men armed with spoons, raincoats, and impossible nerve pull off the only successful escape in the history of Alcatraz and disappear into a brand new life? More than 60 years later, the rock has still never given up its final secret.